Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Pride Month celebration. It is so important tonight that we have this discussion. We have a great group of panelists who are going to be joining us, and it means so much to me that you tuned in tonight. I just want to say thank you so much, and also know that Clint Bryant's campaign is your campaign. So during our discussion tonight, please feel free to check out my top priorities at clintbryant.com. And for our Spanish speaking population, they can visit es.clintbryant.com. Usually June is a month full of Pride festivities, and it's a time for us all to come together and rally around our brothers and sisters of the LGBTQAI community. Unfortunately, this year we've been shut down by COVID-19, but that does not mean that the celebration cannot go on. I hope everybody has had a great day and a good week so far. Tonight, we're going to be joined by leaders of our local LGBTQAI community across the state and across our country. So we have a very special guest who is going to be joining us if she gets out of session in time tonight. We do have some questions prepared, but I want this conversation tonight to be interactive. That's when we get the most fruit and we hear from everybody. So go ahead and put your comments, questions, concerns in the respective comment box below on our live feed, and we will get back to you on those questions. Even if we can't get to them tonight, during our live feed, we will get back to you. So let me go ahead and introduce some of our panelists who are going to be joining us tonight. We have Councilman Bill Ostash from the city of Saginaw, my former colleague. Bill, how are you doing tonight?
Doing fantastic, Clint. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I just love your house. I love your house. We'll talk a little bit more about that. You and Kevin fully restored the Walforth house, and it's absolutely beautiful. You've been on the Historic District Commission. Now you're a council member for the city of Saginaw. And just a little bit more about you. I know you work in IT and finance. So you are definitely very, very busy, and it means so much to me tonight that you've been able to join us. Thank you for making time.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Also joining us tonight is Tom Brubaker. He is very active in our community, from working with his church, Holy Family, also with Sacred Heart. And he's going to give us some resources and some information. Tom is a consummate volunteer. Yes, Tom is a constant volunteer in our community and always willing to lend a helping hand. I know with Beautification Day and any other projects we have going in the city, Tom and his family are always willing to step in. So thank you, Tom, for making time to join us tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And also, we're joined tonight by Councilwoman Garnett Lewis. She is joining us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, Garn. I think many of the folks within Saginaw County know Garn because she's been involved in...
Hey, technical errors. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, it's good to see you. I was just going to go over just a little bit of your bio. You know, you're a business owner. You're a former chair of the Saginaw County Democratic Party. You've been an advocate for the LGBTQAI community for as long as I can remember in our community. But there's, I mean, so many things which you're involved in Saugatuck and formerly in Saginaw, but really throughout the state. So thank you for making time. Stay up to date with you on Facebook and see some of the great things that you guys are doing down there. So thank you also for making time to join us tonight.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and get into our discussion. One of our special guests may pop in and join us as soon as she's out of session. She's representative in Georgia, and we know that they passed the first, they're one of 4 states that was remaining that did not have a hate crimes bill. So they're putting the finishing touches on that and working on a few other things down in the Georgia State House, but they're making great progress. So hopefully Representative Cannon will be able to join us in a little bit. But one of the things I wanted to get into tonight, I just want to remind our listeners to keep your questions coming in, and I'll make sure that we get to them. All across our nation, it feels like we've been in a state of mourning. And oftentimes when you see the daily events and national news, it can feel a little bit removed from you. But last month, the news had felt more real than ever, with some of the things that have been going on within our community and across the country. So tonight, the first question I have for the panelists joining us tonight would be that this week, members of the Pride community had a win with the Supreme Court decision. What are your thoughts about the decision? And can you tell me a little bit initially how you felt? Let's go with Councilman Ostash.
So I was extremely happy when the Supreme Court took the stance that they did. And it's been kind of the argument for, I think, a couple of years now. They finally made it up to the Supreme Court because it's very important. It kind of goes back with the old saying that you could get married on a Friday and be fired on a Monday. And that was very prevalent for my family. Before, it was kind of one of the reasons that we kind of held off getting married. But then in 2018, when I ran for council, people knew I was gay and I was running as an openly gay candidate. It was not my platform. Preservation and buildings were, but it kind of made it kind of a non-event. And so seeing that the Supreme Court took that step was really huge for the nation. And I think even for the younger community to kind of set that at ease for them. It kind of lifts those bricks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's go to Councilwoman Lewis.
No, thank you. So, it was actually a wonderful surprise. I was not expecting it, and then to have it pass at a 6-3 with a 6-3 majority, that was really pretty awesome.
Yes.
Also, that Neil Gorsuch was the one to write the opinion of the majority. That was another kind of shocker, and I'm sure our president was not happy about that one. But I felt I could just see Ruth Bader Ginsburg, on his shoulder. Just basically, because I've gone back and read the language, in his opinion, basically that's because it's impossible to discriminate against a person for being homosexual or transgender without discriminating against that individual based on sex. And if you've ever seen the movie about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it's all about sex. So it was a wonderful surprise and certainly worth celebrating all around. So.
Absolutely, especially with everything that has been going on. It just seems like we've been hit on all sides, in the middle of a pandemic, the issues that are going on with race in our country. We needed a win. We needed a little bit of a shot in the arm. So, and I think it renewed some faith, especially for our young people, that the process can work. It takes a long time, but it can work. Let's go to Tom.
I think the first, obviously, I was very pleased with the Supreme Court ruling. And the first thing I thought about was the Elliott Larson Act and looking at all the effort put into trying to amend that. And so my understanding is federal law would take care of anything happening individually in the states. So there's always part of me that's a little hesitant, but I'm hoping that that's the case in this situation. So
absolutely.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
It was terrific.
Yes. I want to get to a quick question about health. While we did have the recent win in the Supreme Court, there was a blow issued just a few weeks ago by the Trump administration, which finalized a ruling that would remove non-discrimination protections for LGBTQAI plus the community in regards to healthcare and insurance industries. With this new ruling, a transgender person could be refused service. This is an important protection that the Obama administration had placed in the Affordable Care Act. Just initially, what are your thoughts? Because we did have that win, but then we know a few weeks ago with this administration, there's just a constant attack on diversity of any kind. So I just wanted to get Garnett's opinion a little bit on that. Oh, we'll take you off mute, Garn. There. Oh. I muted it accidentally again. There we go.
There we go. So my first reaction when the ruling came down last Monday was that basically that was kind of a thumb in the face of that decision from earlier in the month, I think, because now you've opened the door, so to speak, for an individual to really file a discrimination suit by being refused healthcare or medical attention based on sex. And so that's the way I read it. And that's, kind of me, my positive outlook on things is this really opens the door for anybody to basically file a suit against a health organization or anybody for refusing them coverage.
Tom, can we talk a little bit about, I wanted to ask you this question as well. And part of that might be highlighting your agency and kind of what you guys do within Saginaw. And I can tell you that to my knowledge, as many times as we've worked together, I can tell you that would not be done by Sacred Heart.
Right. Well, we are a substance abuse treatment agency. We actually are going to open our 13th location, which will be in St. Ignace. And we are also an HIV/AIDS care program and substance abuse treatment. We started in Detroit. We've been providing that service for over 50 years. Our AIDS care program, I think this is 32 years now. Wow. In our AIDS care program, our service is free and confidential. We also provide free HIV testing. I just want to let people know that this weekend is National HIV Testing Day. So I have to put a little promotion in for free testing because 14% of the people who are infected in our country with HIV who are infected don't know it because they haven't been tested. And someone said to me not a few years ago that, well, they said HIV/AIDS it really isn't a gay issue anymore. Well, I was really taken aback by that because 70% of people living with HIV/AIDS are gay and bisexual men. And those statistics have not changed. So we have many times our clients use both services. And the opiate epidemic has really been bad the last few years. So we're here in the community. I've been there now for 17 years and just very proud of Sacred Heart and the services we provide. So,
Tom, you mentioned that there would be free testing.
Yes, on Friday at our Saginaw location. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Clint. From 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And, testing has come a long way. We now do what we call a rapid test. It's a mouth swab, and people get results in 20 minutes. There's no cost. They could do walk-ins, but we're asking everyone to wear a mask. We do distancing. We use hand sanitizer. So all of those things are very important. And overall health, especially LGBT community, healthcare is very important. And I'm seeing more and more physicians really learning more about serving the LGBT community, and it really needed to come a long way. And I'm glad to see there's some progress being made.
Thank you so much, Tom. Let's get Councilman Mustache. Bill.
Yeah, the conversation's kind of taken a couple different directions here, and I might even touch on what Tom's talking about too, but even Garnett brought up some important parts. But when because I have friends that are transgendered, and just for the administration to do that, a lot of people don't understand the medical treatment that you need and the medical services that you need. And first of all, being transgendered and just coming out as transgendered is almost like a second coming out. And then everything that goes along with it. And I've actually watched friends of mine, go through their transition. So it kind of broke my heart because it just didn't sit with me, right? And I hope that we can make some progress on that. But Garnett did make a good point that this could, again, set up lawsuits, maybe just under the recent SCOTUS ruling that we had. And then going back to one of the things that Tom was just talking about is just our free services for HIV testing, and just being able to get these services. And I guess this, you can look at everybody within the LGBTQ&A community. One of the boards that I sit on is the board of directors for Perceptions, which is the local group here in the Tri-Cities, and we've reached out even into Mount Pleasant and some other areas. If you go to our website, which is perceptionsmi.org, there's a resource section that we've been building out. And part of that resource section is, and you can actually click on a drop-down menu to get there, but it's resources for medical purposes, because a lot of times people who are in the gay community, they just don't feel comfortable or trying to find a doctor or trying to find somebody who can work with them. So this is really important, and this goes along with this as well. And I have done some conversations with, I would like to get more involved with the Great Lakes Bay Health Centers, who also have the Hearth Home, which is just down the street here. I live on Hoyt, and they also do free HIV testing as well. But within that community, if you go online and you're looking for PrEP or Truvada, and you're looking for how to get it, and you're looking for doctors that deal with infectious disease, one of the links is going to take you right to the Great Lakes Bay Health Centers here in Saginaw, Michigan on James Street, where I've had numerous conversations with the doctor there too, who's working with a lot of our patients in this area. So I know I kind of went off tangent there, but I just want to let people know that these services are available, and also to visit our website too if you're looking for somebody that can help you.
Absolutely, Bill. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that once you look at violence across the country, we know that that's highest amongst our brothers and sisters in the transgender community who are African American or Black. So we have to continue this fight to make sure that everybody is treated equally and with equity. That's what it's about. I mean, despite what's going on at the federal level, there's things that we can do here locally and within the state of Michigan to protect our brothers and sisters. So thank you all for jumping in on that. I had a quick question, because I've seen some information that we may have a human rights. We've been making some progress on that here in Saginaw. So that led me to the question on a local level, and Councilwoman, you can speak to that a little bit as well too. But at the local level, what are some of the changes that you would like to see to help drive the much needed systemic change in our community? I can go ahead and start with Councilman Ostash.
So if anybody was watching our meeting this Monday, you would have heard our city manager talk about this a little bit. So what we have done, Councilwoman Forbes made a motion to put together a committee to do an exploratory on what a commission would look like. And so the way I see this, when you're talking about a commission, if we were to develop a commission, we're looking at something that would sit as an operating body within the city of Saginaw's government, right? So it'd be just like getting on the historic district or zoning and boarding or planning commissions. They would have their own set of bylaws and how they would operate as to what they would do. So I've been kind of doing a little research today, going and looking at other cities like Ann Arbor, and I also looked at Traverse City. And I kind of like what they did. So basically, it's kind of the Elliott Larson civil rights. You're kind of overseeing that whole section from the LGBT community or the gay community, but also we could also look into other areas that's not just that as well. So we'd want to make sure that we're covering any kind of human rights things or social events that are going on with our Latino community or our Black community. Because as you know, right now in the city of Saginaw, we've also got another committee working on our community advocacy committee with our police department. So we're going to have these two new things going on, but yet if it's not something going in the CAC, we could also maybe look over to our other commission for that, and people could come and file complaints, because anybody that's read our city charter knows that there was a department back in the day that was a liaison between the citizens and the government, and that was a person that was appointed by the manager, and that was a paid position, but we don't have that anymore. So I think this is a really good step for our citizens to now get that voice between us and the government, and a way for them to file paperwork or file complaints and then have things looked into. I was extremely happy about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilwoman.
So I'm trying to follow what's been happening in the city of Saginaw, and I assume it's something along the lines of a human rights ordinance. Is that? Please bring me up to speed.
Yeah.
We haven't talked. Yeah, we don't know what it is yet, Garnett. we're just kind of doing a committee was put together right now to kind of what would this look like, what would we want to be, how would this develop, and so there's no ordinances involved or anything like that yet. I know when you're looking at the city of Ann Arbor, they do have their commission out, and they also have an ordinance as well. But when you look at Traverse City, they just did it by resolution, and then they also have their commission that sits within the city government as well. So we're just getting this off the ground.
Okay. Well, we're in a little bit of a different situation over here in the gay mecca of West Michigan. We have the human rights ordinance that was passed numerous years ago. I mean, it took them a while to get there as a city and cities, because we really have Saugatuck, Douglas, and then the greater Saugatuck Township. But all three municipalities have passed a human rights ordinance years ago. Our latest achievement was to have a Pride Month proclamation, and to include, and that was our latest achievement, to actually include on it the flying of the Pride flag for the entire month of June at City Hall. So we've had a really nice little win with that, but very fortunate where I live. We're just kind of seen as kind of the home to the LGBTQ community. So
very good. All right. Well, thank you so much. We do have quite a few questions. We will get back to the remainder of our panel discussion. But I just wanted to introduce a good friend of mine. We met, I believe it was, I'm trying to think, this is 2020. We met, I want to say 6 years ago in 2014, Representative Park Cannon. She is she's just doing it. She is doing it down in Georgia. She represents Georgia's 58th district. As you can tell, she is in the Golden Dome right now. And thank you so much, Representative Cannon, for spending some time with us tonight. We are so pleased to have you here. We know there's been a great amount of activity in Georgia, but can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself? And I really wanted to dive into Georgia's religious freedom bill.
Sure. I hope everyone's able to hear me and to see me clearly. I just stepped off of the House floor. It's been a long day of voting. We only have 2 days of session left because of the COVID-19 break, and because we have not hit our peak yet with COVID here in Georgia. But the goal of some of the legislative attempts that we've been having here is to actually bring visibility of the LGBTQ community into policies, and to bring some of the issues that we experience all around the year to more understanding during Pride Month. So when we left here in February, we heard and we knew and we experienced that there would actually be more religious-based discrimination in the form of RFRA, Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And we actually left here in March without that bill moving forward, which we're in the Bible Belt. So that was huge for big organizations like Coca-Cola to stand with us and say, we don't want RFRA. What we want instead is a hate crimes bill. So yesterday, Georgia made history. We finally, after 470 days of the hate crimes bill sitting in the Senate with no LGBTQ members, only a few Black members, just not as bipartisan of a body as the House, but we actually passed our first hate crimes bill, and it includes sex as well as gender, as well as sexual orientation, which, as many people know, based on the recent Supreme Court case and based on some other cases, the LGBTQ community, especially folks who are transgender, can, if they have good attorneys and follow the process, actually win their cases by mirroring and marrying together gender, sex, and sexual orientation. So we're excited here in Georgia. That's why I'm, super excited about what Clint's doing, trying to bring more progress where y'all are.
Absolutely. Now, Park, let's just dive in a little bit more to that bill. We know that it's pending, and it's difficult to say, Governor Kemp's signature. But do you think, yes. Does this initial bill, do you think it goes far enough? Or do you think we're okay with this bill as current form?
Well, these were difficult conversations in the midst of a pandemic. Normally, we finish session in March, and the governor has 40 days veto power. So you give him another month and change. We're in May by that point, and the budget doesn't go into effect until July 1st. So normally, he has those 40 days to veto or sign any legislation as well as the budget. This time, he's going to have like 2 days because we finish session this Friday and then the budget goes into effect on July 1st. So we're trying to understand if he's going to hold on to that 40-day power that he has or if he's going to go ahead and sign it. I have heard he's going to sign it on Friday. And I try to keep my ear to to the streets, to the wall. So I will definitely be, ready on Friday for that to happen. But the reality is with the bill, it's so controversial now because when we created our version of it in the House, you had a diverse sponsorship. You had the oldest lesbian in the House. You had the oldest man in the House. You had a GOP Caucasian, attorney. You had the chair of the Black Caucus. So already a really diverse bill. And so all of those legislators had to speak to their own communities and figure out, do we want a mandatory minimum in here? Are we trying to penalize people by putting them in jail for hate crimes? But then at the same time calling for criminal justice reform. So we really had to work back and forth. And when we got our version out to the Senate, they didn't even want to really vote on it. They let it sit for over 470 days. And then they added the police in as a protected class and passed it. So then we were in this posture in the House of how are y'all doing this? So they ended up taking the police part out, stripping an entire other bill, putting the police part in that bill, adding to that bill to the PO's Bill of Rights, and then passing the hate crimes bill. So it's really emotional around here. Folks are feeling like we kind of have half justice because of the other things that have passed. But I'm proud to say that we fought for inclusion of the LGBTQ community and we got that.
That's a wonderful part. Excuse me, Representative. While I have you on the line, I asked our panelists when we first started, I wanted to talk about the LGBTQI community and having a win in the Supreme Court with the recent decision. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and tell me a little bit how you felt.
Well, we have one of those employment cases right here based in Georgia in Clayton County. During Pride Walk last year, myself, Representative Renita Shannon, and a few other members of our Equality Caucus, we call it here at the state capitol, members of the LGBTQ community, but we actually wore T-shirts with the cases on them. See some of my colleagues too loud. But as you can see, we were visibly trying to show the community, follow these Supreme Court cases. It's happening right here. Someone who worked in the Clayton County government for years and years and years faced discrimination and then was taken out of his job because of his orientation. So we know that right here, that Supreme Court case, it is bolstering our fights for justice here in Georgia. We have been waiting and waiting, and the Pride community erupted, with happiness and hopefulness. And so that Supreme Court case is certainly the first of its kind and hopefully not the last.
Yes, and with the recent ruling, we did see that as a win. But the other question I asked our panel was about the Trump administration. And they previously put out, they did some modifications. So I just want to ask you this quick question. With some of the modifications that have been done by the Trump administration, with this new ruling, a transgender person could be refused service. And it was an important protection that the Obama administration had placed in the Affordable Care Act. And let me just get your initial thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah, no, certainly. We today in a 10 o'clock meeting, we're looking at some of these, Trumpian, Rumpian rollbacks and how it has truly affected the trans community. I have the permission to say this, but, my chief of staff is transgender and she left Georgia this session during the middle of session because the climate has been so incredibly dangerous, and we want her to feel safe in her place of work. So we couldn't even protect her here at the state capitol from being misgendered and from having excess pat downs and just not being safe at night. So we are really conscious of those rumpy and rollbacks, and we're also hitting them with the truth. So in Georgia, if you are experiencing these issues, our office works directly with the Transgender Law Center, and we would love to put you in touch with an attorney, as well as Georgia Equality has been out fighting for justice for trans folks.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Representative. We have a great group, a very dynamic panel. Councilwoman Garnett Lewis, Councilman Ostash, and Tom Brubaker. This is Representative Park Cannon. So everyone do their introductions. I wanted to ask another question of our panel, and I'll start with Councilwoman Lewis. And the question is, do you feel like a trailblazer? And if so, can you tell me about a specific moment that you realized you had opened the door for others to come behind you?
Well, this is going to be some history. Well, when I was living up in the Saginaw Freeland area, I ran for state representative as a lesbian, openly gay, out to everyone in 2008. And I was the first out candidate in the state of Michigan. And so, yeah, they tend to refer to me as the trailblazer, and I actually remember being quite terrified. But that was the first. And then after that, there's been a great effort across the state to recruit LGBTQ plus candidates to run for state office. And, since that time, we've seen John Hoadley, Representative Hoadley elected. It was Representative Moss, now Senator Moss elected. And John Hoadley's now running for Congress. So, it's 12 years ago. It's hard to believe.
Very good. Let's go to Councilman Ostash.
Well, that is a question that if you ask me over and over again, you're going to get the same answer. I came out late. That was 38. That's another long story. But when I did, the meaning of it is to be fully out. My parents are totally supportive. I remember when I had told my mom, she just kind of looked at me and she says, "Is that really what you had to tell me? Because you're nervous, right? You're trying to express yourself." And my dad just looked at me and says, "Are you happy?" So from that day forward, I've been openly out in the family because I figure, what if there's somebody that has a question? What if somebody needs a conversation? And that has happened. I mean, I've had family members who are parents who I've talked to my cousins, it'd be my second cousin to that, because the parents they said, this is just out of my circle. I don't know what to do. And so I was able to help family members who were struggling with their identity or kind of where they fall on the scale. I encourage everybody to watch a movie and maybe even get the book about Dr. Kinsey, and he will talk about our sexual orientation scale and where we fall. And so those are some of the things that we had conversations with. And as an example, being this particular person kind of fell in the middle. And so those conversations were, okay, well, it's okay to be bisexual. That's how you identify. So that's been my main goal, is to be out. I want to be someone that somebody can talk to. that breaks the stereotype, because back in the day, everybody thinks it's just pride parades and rainbow flags, and that we're a whole other community. I mean, we're working, functioning people in society that, as you can see, I'm involved in many boards and commissions and volunteering. So that was my big thing, Clint, and that's my story. When anybody asks me that question, is I just want to be there for other folks and to help them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go to Tom. Tom, do you feel that you're a trailblazer? And if so, when did you realize that? Is there a critical moment that you had?
I wouldn't consider myself a trailblazer, but I will tell you that Garnett Lewis woke me up politically about 8 years ago, and I appreciate her for that. I'm very proud of the fact that my husband and I have been together for 28 years, and growing up in the small town of Freeland and being closeted for so many years, I have to say that where I am today, I never would have expected. I never would have expected that I would be able to marry, to have a husband, to live in this area, to be openly out and working in our community. I never thought I'd see it. And as hard as the work has been, very difficult with, trying to make progress LGBT community. But once it starts to happen, it happens. But the concern I have is for our transgendered brothers and sisters, because I think that's something that we really have to really push and really work hard on. That really concerns me. But anyway, Bill and Garn, I'm just really happy to see you two, especially since I've known both of you for a while. And Garn, thank you. Thank you for waking me up.
You were willing. You were willing.
Wonderful. Thank you. I do want to get to one question that we're dealing with here in Michigan, just to piggyback off the questions I previously asked Representative Cannon. Let's talk about our families. Last year, our amazing State Attorney General, Dana Nessel, tried to revise the rule that religious-based adoption agencies could refuse to place children with LGBT families. Do you think that this is an issue that the legislature should take up more seriously within our state house? And I'll start with Garn.
Ooh, well, I think Attorney General Nessel and the governor, for that matter, recognize that with our current state house and state senate, it's kind of like RFRA. Right now, getting it through, it just won't happen, because the GOP is, for lack of a better word, rather entrenched. I mean, they've drawn the line in the sand. Dana Nessel's a smart, savvy attorney, and I think she's probably going to wait to see what happens this year with the election. I mean, we're seeing huge turnouts everywhere, whether it's our primaries or other primaries across the nation. I think it's indicative of what the turnout's going to be like in November. And as far as it applies to the state of Michigan, we have a real chance to reassume control of the House, which I think will then open that door to pursuing further rights, if you will, for adoption. So, I always used to refer to it as kind of being like double teamed on the basketball court, right? You could have all the best intentions in the world, and when you have a House and a Senate in GOP hands, it's tough. It's really tough.
All right, thank you. Let's get to another question that has come in, and it is, do you think that we are doing enough? It focuses on education. Do you think that we are doing enough to protect our young people from abuse and discrimination? Let's go to Representative Cannon and then Councilman Ostash.
Well, luckily here in Atlanta, where District 58 is, we have a school system that recognized that they were not doing the best by LGBTQ families and children. So they created an internal task force of legislators and community members who could actually speak to the concerns of the LGBTQ community in education and actually help us to implement some of the policy changes that need to happen on what is appropriate for dress code and around bathroom usage and the forms they send home, and including, all families, and allowing for gender pronouns to be understood and taught. And also just thinking about the historical parts of us that we're still facing today. We had to remind them that during COVID-19, with all of our communities spread out and not in their normal places of support, we're seeing LGBTQ discrimination pile up on top of being poor, pile up on top of being Asian, pile up on top of being abused for children. And we needed a safe way for them to actually share what was going on. So we got an organization, Chris 180, to do that and to help bring the conversation back to how do we during Pride Month actually do more than just a resolution to bring to the march, but actually dig internally to some of the operating policies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Representative. Councilman Ostash.
Oh, my head was going in a lot of different directions just listening to the representative. So I feel that we really do. And I think that we need to keep that conversation on the forefront. And even if your school doesn't have some sort of a Straight Gay Alliance organization, maybe there's some other things that we can do. Because we all know that, and I know from a personal experience I can share with myself, being in the 6th through 12th grade, that's a really hard time for kids that are growing up, especially if they're trying to just, because if they know they're gay and they're just really trying to identify, then if you have any kind of bullying that comes on top of that, we all know that that's a large percentage of our teen suicide population that is happening within that age group. So there's and I just want to say too, there's organizations out there like the Trevor Project. If anybody's not aware of it, just search for it and kind of just see some of the work that is doing as well. So I guess one of my big concerns is, yes, we do need to do more of that, because one of my big concerns is just with the kids that are struggling and being bullied. And then once in a while you see that situation where somebody has taken their own life. And that's kind of where I sit with that, Clint. Yeah.
And you're exactly right, Councilman Ostash and Representative. I don't think our health system will be correct as a county until we understand the importance of mental health. And we know that members of the LGBTQAI community are more likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress. And I wanted to pose this question to Tom or anyone else, but I wanted to talk a little bit about local resources. And I know, Bill, you had mentioned earlier, so if you could follow up with perceptions information, but just anyone on our call, especially locally, or for the representative or Garn joining us, what are some of the resources that may be available? Tom, let's go to you first.
Well, I recently joined the board of PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, here in the Tri-City area. And they do wonderful work. Of course, PFLAG is a national organization, but the group meets here in Saginaw Township the 3rd Sunday of every month. And it's a very important support organization and we see a number of young people coming to the group for support for them, for their parents, for others. And so I really want to mention PFLAG today, and they can find that information, PFLAG, I believe it's PFLAG Tri-Cities. So I think that's a very important group, and they're there for anyone. Everyone is welcome to that group in the community. So, and the other point was recently, the past few years, I've learned a lot about, as far as runaway shelters. You see a lot of LGBT youth. I think Interlink, part of Youth Protection Council, Interlink does some wonderful work, and there needs to be places like that. And especially I worry about young people, young LGBT individuals in rural areas where they can't get a service like that. So, but I definitely want to mention PFLAG because that is an important service. And PFLAG has been here since 1990 in Saginaw.
Yep.
That's great. Councilman, can you tell us about the Perceptions, the Perceptions website, where we might be able to find some more information on resources?
So it is perceptionsmi.org, and they do have a resource section. But I also want to say some of the programs that we have too. And actually, there's a section where you can get in on our email list, because every week there's a newsletter that comes out from our director, Scott Ellis. We have a Harmony Diversity Choir, so if anybody's interested in that, that's a choir that's exactly what it says. It's diverse. It's a diverse choir made up of our allies and our gay community. Then we also have a transgender group, so there's a lot of outreach for that too, and I know that they meet frequently. And then we also have a scholarship program, and then we also have a tobacco cessation program, and then also too, we have a lot of information for PFLAG. And then also too, on our resource section, under our resource tab, you can find a lot of information there on just what I was talking about, just realtors, medical services, anything you can think of within the community. And then we have a calendar and stuff out there too. So, and then there's a contact page too, and we're all out there. So you can just click on that and email any one of us a question, or visit our Facebook page. We're also on Twitter and on Instagram.
Bill, Councilman, can you just repeat that one more time?
Okay, which part?
The website.
Perceptionsmi.org. And that Perceptionsmi is all one word.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Councilwoman Lewis.
Yeah, so I was kind of like Bill. I was thinking about 1,000 things, but I think ultimately going back to the Supreme Court ruling as it applies to our young people in schools. You think about, and a lot of us panelists here and some folks I see that have chimed in that are attending are old enough to remember when teachers were fired for being gay and lesbian. And so what this does now, this ruling, because teachers are role models and mentors to our students, whether they're gay or straight. And you think of our kids in our schools today, to have an out teacher or teachers. And I see that being able to happen more easily now, because before, my friends who were gay, who were teaching, like, there's no way that I can be out. But for our students, our young people, it's so critical that they have role models who are out. And I really wanted to stress that point, because they listen, they watch, they're like sponges. And I think the same applies then, moving out of the educational system, of why it's so important for folks to run openly gay LGBT for state or city office, because young people watch everything, and it takes a great bit of courage to be out. And they certainly draw great strength from us as role models. So I see this as, in our current generation, they are so much more comfortable with just like, I am gay, I am lesbian, I am transgender, and are much less reticent than back in the day. So I know I've kind of rambled all around, but having models for our students, whether it's in the schools or in public office, is so critical. And then they have a resource that they can actually turn to if they have questions.
Yeah, on our Father's Day, we had a Father's Day roundtable on Sunday. And Garn, I know how close you are with your dad. And we had, Adam Gonzalez on our panel. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but it was, I get goosebumps because it was the most beautiful thing when he spoke about his son coming out to him. And it was just a non-issue. And I think his son had so much anxiety built up in him, because his dad is a, rough and tumble kind of guy, big guy. But I'm telling you what, and that just made my heart absolutely melt. And we have some stories in our family with my brother just graduating from high school and his friends. And it's been amazing to see my family become more and more accepting. It's 2020. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Rep, I want to get you in on this too. Are there any resources nationally, or what are some of the organizations in Georgia that you see really putting a phenomenal work in down in Georgia?
Everyone's so loud because out, so everyone's like rah, rah, rah. I just wanted to plug that the city of Atlanta created its own office called One Atlanta, and it houses multicultural affairs, immigrant affairs, LGBTQ affairs. And so we have been putting together Atlanta's website, which is atlgbtq.atlantagA.gov.
Right.
And we're excited,
I like it.
right? We're excited about it because it has resources for the clinics that are LGBTQ affirming and some of the mental health options, some of the educational resources and organizations to follow, the city sponsored events, did drag story time. And so when you go to atlgbtq.atlantagA.gov, you'll see our drag story time and you'll see children there, you'll see the mayor, and all of us just working together to forward progress LGBTQ equity in the South.
Wow, that's great. Representative, before we, I know you are very busy, but if you would you put that in our on our Facebook in the comments? That would be wonderful. So that way we can just, folks can just quick get to that. But I do have a final question for our panelists. I want to start with the representative, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. You've had a very busy couple days and weeks. But our closing question for our panelists tonight is, I want you to each to speak to anyone on the call tonight who might be struggling with fully embracing who they are because of fear of the unknown and how others might react. Speak directly to those folks. What advice do you have for them to move forward? Representative.
I just had to unmute myself. I would just say it's not easy to live out in loud in the South. In fact, it's criminalized, and sometimes it feels like it's not the right thing to do. I came out to my mom on Mother's Day because I thought it would be the best thing to do, and it really wasn't. So, you know, as we stumble and as we fall in finding our identities and the things that resonate with us and the communities that we love and the way that we speak and we act, it's okay for it to not be right. And it's okay for it to kind of mess up. But the resilience that our community has is something that everyone can learn from. If people don't understand, like, for example, with the hate crime bill, as much as an African-American person, I was excited about the inclusion of race, especially since Ahmaud Arbery just happened here and Rayshard Brooks just happened in our district a few days ago. But I was really more excited about sexual orientation, gender, and sex included because that is status recognition for the LGBTQ community that we've never had. And so when we're fighting for status recognition and we're fighting to figure out who we are, sometimes we just don't get it right, and that's okay.
Thank you so much for that. Let's go to Tom Brubaker.
Well, I you know, all of a sudden I had a thought of Mr. Rogers when he said, in times of trouble, look for the helpers. And I just encourage anyone who's struggling to reach out to those organizations that we've talked about tonight. Look for those people who are helpers that they can go to. Look for those resources in the community. I can tell you just personally, I never thought I'd be where I am today, but it took courage. And all of us know, we know when the time is right for us to make those moves. I never thought I'd summon up the courage to come out, but I did. It took me a long time. I was 33 when I did so, but I've not regretted anything that I've done.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Let's go to Councilman Ostash.
I'm going to tag on to what Tom was just talking about, and everything he said is exactly true. And so you just take a little step or as much as you can, but I encourage everybody to just take that step. because no matter how scary it is, sometimes when you take that step, you're going to find out that there's somebody there that supports you, somebody that's right behind you, and it's going to give you some encouragement. And that's what I found along the way. Every time I would move forward, there'd be somebody else that would protect me, or even a family member. When they found out, then other family members would step in and like, but wait a minute, yesterday this is how you knew Bill, and today he's not a different person. So, and I encourage people just to reach out for resources. Go to my Facebook page, get a hold of me. Let's have a conversation. Tell me what's on your mind, and then even find a way to work through that. And then that's really what I have to say for them. It's just don't be afraid. Understand that people will rally behind you.
Thank you so much for that, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Lewis.
Yeah, so, again, this kind of, I'm going to go back and reemphasize my point again, that when we as folks are open and out as elected individuals or teachers or in any profession, it makes it so much easier for a person to reach out to us because they know we're basically kind of in their footsteps. And that means a great deal. I've had a number of folks, young folks over the years. My background was in university education. The number of young people who felt comfortable to come into my office and close the door and have this conversation. And that's why it's so important that we understand that we are a role model for gay and straight individuals who either themselves are in the process of coming out or have family who are in the process of coming out, or friends, that we could be a resource easily. And then, we also, because just by virtue of that, we're so very much more aware of the services that are out there, such as what Tom was talking about, and perceptions. So we can be a conduit, if you will, or an avenue to point folks in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Lewis. And thank you to each member of our panel. Representative Park Cannon, thank you so much for joining us and making time in the Golden Dome. And thank you to Tom Brubaker from Sacred Heart, Councilman Ostash from the Wellforth House, and also Councilwoman Garnett Lewis. Thank you all so much for joining us for our Pride Happy Hour. And I look forward to talking with you all very soon.
Right. Thanks, Clint.
Thank you, Clint.
Yep. Absolutely. And thank you to
Great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to each member of our community who joined us tonight. I've learned so much on our call, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Please know that I hear you, and I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to be working to elevate each and every one of the issues which we talked about this evening. For more information or to donate, you can text Clint to 22999 or go to clintbryant.com for more information. For Spanish-speaking population, you can visit es.clintbryant.com. And I also wanted to let you know that we do have yard signs, and they are in. So if you would like to request a yard sign to show your support for Team Bryant, I would greatly appreciate it. You can go to clintbryant.com/yard sign. And you can always connect with me on each social media platform at Clint Bryant MI. So thank you once again for joining us tonight. Thank you for our dynamic group of panelists, and we will see you very soon. Take care.